For the latest in strategic affairs, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon for updates.
Hello and welcome to Strat News Global, and welcome to The Gist, our signature show on foreign affairs and security. I am Surya Gangadharan, and our guest for this evening is Samuel Getachew. He's sitting in Addis Ababa, thousands of miles away from India. And as your guest, we're going to talk about Ethiopia, in particular the situation in Tigray province, which Ethiopian forces had entered about 9 months ago. There was a political discord followed by reportedly an attack on an Ethiopian army camp in Tigray, and the result was a civil war. The latest situation is that Ethiopian forces appear to have largely withdrawn from the province, and we're going to get more from my friend Samuel Getachew, who is in Addis Ababa, as I mentioned earlier. Samuel, welcome and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Samuel, what is the situation in Tigray today? Have Ethiopian forces withdrawn completely from the province?
There are many parts we are being told that the TPLF is currently holding. Most of the soldiers from the Ethiopian side have left. According to the Ethiopian Prime Minister, it was a pre-arranged withdrawal from the region because they needed to focus on other parts, including mega projects like the Renaissance Dam. But if you speak to the TPLF, they will tell you that they did defeat or force the withdrawal to happen. And now the discussion moves to the ceasefire. What kind of ceasefire are we going to have as more people are being still affected by this conflict that began, as you said, almost 9 months ago?
Mm-hmm. Samuel, we are a little confused. Exactly what has happened in these 9 months? Have the Ethiopian forces been defeated? What happened?
Well, it depends on who you speak to. You're situated in India. Our politics is almost the same. It's never black and white. So again, it depends on who you speak to. If you speak to the Ethiopian side, they would tell you that they weren't defeated. They did withdraw on their own terms. And they also heard the cries for some kind of ceasefire by international donors and countries. But again, if you speak to the TPLF, they will tell you the opposite. They will tell you that they did defeat the Ethiopian side, and they've taken over many parts of the Tigray region, including the historic and the capital of the Tigray state, which is the Tigray region, which is Mekelle, an important city within Ethiopia. But again, it depends on who you speak to.
Mm-hmm. So, is the Tigray still a part of Ethiopia? Is it independent? What is the situation?
No, it's part of Ethiopia. It's a region within Ethiopia. It's an Ethiopian state, and it's a part of Ethiopia.
Uh-huh. And you mean to say, after all this fighting and so much killing, there is agreement among the two sides to continue talking? To what purpose?
There's no agreement. If you listen to both sides, you only have to open the social media to see the kind of differences they're beginning to have. Ethiopia declared the TPLF party or government a terrorist group earlier this year, and now they insist they're not going to speak to a terrorist organization. But the TPLF is also laying out a foundation on how they can agree on, including a recognition that their government would be recognized by Addis Ababa, that the federal transfer funds won't be suspended anymore, would in fact be given to them. They're also calling for the release of much of their prisoners that they feel were attacked because of their ethnic backgrounds. And there's a stark differences between the two sides, and there doesn't seem to be any compromise position by both.
Mm-hmm. At this point, are Eritrean forces still in Tigray?
It's hard to know because, there's no flights. There's no way of verifying the information. You only have to hear both sides, and they're telling you different narratives. But they were supposed to withdraw a while back. That's what the Ethiopian side said. But we can never verify what's happening because we are not able to travel to the part of Ethiopia, which is an important region within Ethiopia, the northern part of Ethiopia.
Mhm. And the Eritreans entered Tigray at the request of your own leaders, isn't it? Ethiopia's leaders.
Well, the prime minister said they did enter this conflict to defend their own interests. He said from parliament, he said they feared that the TPLF would attack them. But again, if you speak to the other side, they would tell you that the Eritrean side wanted to score points because of what happened some 20, 23 years ago, the last conflict between the two countries, between Ethiopia, which was led by a coalition, the dominant being TPLF, and also Asmara, Eritrea, where, countless people, at least it's estimated 100,000 people died because of that conflict that went on. The conflict might have ended then, but again, the feelings of hate between the two countries only grew over time, and we're seeing the result of it now.
Mhm. So I just want to come back to this issue of Ethiopian troops. Are they still in Tigray? Have they withdrawn? What is the situation?
Much of the Ethiopian soldiers are in the Amhara section now, which is in the southern part of Tigray. That's where many of them are. We're beginning to see images coming from them, but there seems to be some kind of withdrawal for the Ethiopian side from the Tigray state, which the Ethiopian government insists they're trying to give, while making TPLF illegal, they're trying to protect and serve and give more opportunities for a part of Ethiopia that has been neglected forever. It's the poorest part of Ethiopia, and it's also where the famous or the infamous famine of 1984, much of it happened within the state. So, but again, the TPLF insists they're the one in charge. They're the ones that do have the interest of the people at heart. So, this, like many things in Ethiopia and the continent, the conflict has become a wage issue.
I've been reading some reports that Ethiopia has allowed humanitarian groups to enter Tigray with supplies. Is this true?
Well, the humanitarian issue within Tigray has been concerning to all of us. We've watched it from a distance, we've watched it from near. There is a famine that seems to be coming to the region once again. But the Ethiopian side is insisting they're opening corridors. The reason of the ceasefire that they called for is to make sure that farmers are able to farm and feed much of the population. According to the UN, 91% of the population out of 5.5 million, over 5.5 million people are in need of some emergency food aid. And almost close to, according to the US, close to 1 million people are facing famine. So, but again, I think they're beginning to have a uniform interest to make sure that the impact of the famine won't be as grave as many people assume it to be. But again, with no agreement of a ceasefire, I'm sure this famine will just grow and many people will be impacted by it, unfortunately.
But do you expect some kind of talk soon?
With this kind of differences between the two sides, nobody knows. But again, I think the world is beginning to have all kinds of interest to make sure that this conflict ends peacefully. And again, the impact of this conflict will be less than assumed. But I'm sure there are many, many countries that are willing to play a role, including the African Union.
Mhm. I want to come to the role of Mr. Abiy Ahmed. Has his position weakened as a result of this entire Tigray operation, withdrawal of troops? Politically, is he weakened now?
Well, at anytime there's going to be an election result, which is going to confirm him as prime minister, he'll be elected for the first time, as many people assume it to be. He has support, but many people are doubting if this is a free and fair election. But again, the result is going to show us that he is going to win and he's going to be elected.
Mhm. And he controls the armed forces, the police, everything.
He does. I mean, Ethiopia is a country, and it's governed by a constitution that gives him the right to, be ahead of all the government agencies he just mentioned. I mean, he is
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
prime minister.
Yeah, and is there any independent election commission that will oversee elections, the conduct of elections to ensure they're free?
Yes, the National Electoral Board of Ethiopia is looking at the elections, but there are many opposition that have boycotted the election, saying it's not a fair election. As the head of the observer from the African Union, a former president of Nigeria, said this is the most fairest and the clearest election in the history of Ethiopia. But Ethiopia has never had a free and fair election. I don't know what he's comparing it to. But again, the people that came out and voted, I was able to speak to many of them. They seem to be excited uh, by the chance even to exercise their human rights. There was lineups, like even in the wee hours of the night, so they will be able to be the first in line. People seem to be excited, but I think as we go, on in the weeks and months ahead, we're going to, other people experts will make a determination if this was a fair and real election. But again, the result will show that the prime minister will be elected and he will lead Ethiopia for the next 5 years.
So if he wins again, and from what you're telling me, he'll probably win. Do you expect things could get worse on the Tigray front? Could matters reach a new peak?
This is his first time being elected. In 2018, he was appointed by parliament, just to clarify. But Ethiopia has many issues to deal with, including COVID, an economy that's somehow growing, but investors that are a bit concerned with the conflict that has been going on, not just in the Tigray region, all across the nation. And many people are saying it's not just his faults, but it's something that has been ongoing for Ethiopia with this endless conflicts across the country. But I think his win, which is expected to come anytime, will hopefully give him the confidence to govern Ethiopia and hopefully try to bring some kind of solutions across the country. The reality is many people are being impacted by what's going on, not just in the Tigray region. I know the focus is in Tigray. I'm not trying to discount what's happening all across the country. And even foreign investors, which are important partners in Ethiopia's development, are concerned. So I'm sure he will try to, bring or at least attempt to bring some kind of solutions to what's been happening in Ethiopia.
Is there any talk of sending UN forces into this region?
No, I've never heard of any kind of suggestion.
And do you feel foreign investors, foreign governments would be okay with Mr. Abiy Ahmed, continuing in power?
I think foreign investors are always trying to make money. I don't think they care who is in government, as long as they're given the tools and their concerns are being listened to. I don't know of any foreign investor that wants to get into the politics, the internal politics of Ethiopia. Ethiopia is no different than India. I've never seen a foreign investor trying to influence an election. I think the focus is and will be, according to their perspective, I'm sure, to make sure that Ethiopia has a government that's functioning. There's less corruption, and there will be rules and laws that will be respected, and that would give them favorable, perspective on what they are doing. Because at the end of the day, they're trying to make money and also pay taxes, which is important to a government to help create needed jobs on the ground.
Has Mr. Abiy Ahmed promised anything in terms of maybe transparency, accountability, etc.?
He has from day one, and he has also said he wants to bring private international companies to invest in Ethiopia, including within the Ethiopian telecommunications sector, which has been controlled by Ethiopia since its beginning days. But there are many companies that are coming in. including Vodacom from Kenya, investing in local telecom sectors. But again, to talk honestly, the Prime Minister has always said we need international investment, and Ethiopia will be open for business. And he's also said the banking sector might need some kind of investment from abroad.
Last question, Samuel. Over the next 3 months, what do you expect to see happening in Ethiopia?
Personally, I think the conflict will be a priority across the country. Ethiopia will be looking for some kind of solutions to its problem. Ethiopia cannot continue the way it has been for the last year in terms of conflicts. And there are many parts of the nation that's not being accessible to investors and to citizens. I think there is some kind of realization that is not serving Ethiopia well, and I think Ethiopia will really look in the mirror and try to address the issue of violence that has really damaged its image and its reputation. And I think there is an understanding by all actors. That's where Ethiopia should look into solving before it moves forward.
Samuel Getachew, pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for your information and insight, and look forward to having you further many more times on the show.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you. And for all of you out there who are watching the show, and keep sending us your comments and your observations. We look forward to your participation. Do follow us on various other social media, including Instagram. And of course, do subscribe to us. Thank you very much.